The town of Ferndale was an archetypal suburban enclave, filled with neat houses, sprawling lawns, and tree-lined streets. It was a place where neighbors knew each other's names, and children played freely in the yards. Beneath its serene exterior, however, lurked an ancient, malevolent force waiting to shatter the tranquility of its residents. Jay Height, a 19-year-old college student, lived a relatively normal life. She was an avid swimmer and enjoyed spending time with her younger sister Kelly and their friends Paul and Yara. Summer was ending, and with it came a mix of anticipation and melancholy as the group prepared for a new semester. One evening, Jay agreed to go on a date with a charming young man named Hugh. They went to a movie theater, where they played a game of people-watching, trying to guess who among the crowd they would trade places with. Hugh's choice of an innocent child unnerved Jay, but she shrugged it off, attributing it to a playful quirk. After the movie, Hugh suggested they go for a drive. They ended up at an abandoned parking lot, where they shared a moment of intimacy in the back seat of his car. It was a tender experience until Hugh's demeanor changed abruptly. He chloroformed Jay, rendering her unconscious. When Jay awoke, she found herself tied to a wheelchair in the middle of the deserted lot. Hugh, pacing nervously, began to explain the horrifying reality that had befallen her. He told her about the curse he had passed on to her, an entity that could take the form of anyone and would relentlessly pursue her at a walking pace. The only way to rid herself of it was to pass it on to someone else through sexual intercourse. Hugh pointed out a figure in the distance, a naked woman slowly making her way toward them. He insisted it was real and dangerous. After ensuring she saw the entity, he drove her home and abandoned her, disappearing into the night. The next day, Jay was found by her sister Kelly and their friends. She was shaken and incoherent, trying to explain what had happened. They were skeptical but supportive, accompanying her to the police. Hugh was nowhere to be found, and the police dismissed her story as a traumatic episode. As days passed, Jay tried to return to normalcy, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She began seeing the entity, sometimes as strangers, other times as people she knew. The appearances were subtle at first, but as the entity got closer, its forms became more disturbing. One evening, Jay saw the entity approaching her in the form of an old woman in a hospital gown while she was in class. Terrified, she fled the room, drawing the concern of her friends. She explained the curse to them in more detail, but their skepticism persisted until they witnessed an encounter themselves. At Jay's house, the entity broke a window and entered, taking the form of a disheveled woman. The group barely escaped, realizing the seriousness of Jay's plight. Determined to find a solution, the group decided to track down Hugh. They managed to locate his real name, Jeff, and discovered his last known address, a dilapidated house on the outskirts of town. The house was filled with makeshift alarms and traps, evidence of Jeff's desperate attempts to fend off the entity. Jeff was initially reluctant to help, but the group's persistence wore him down. He reiterated what he had told Jay, emphasizing the importance of staying on the move and passing the curse on. Jeff's haunted eyes and haggard appearance underscored the relentless nature of the entity. He advised them to never stop running and to always be vigilant. Armed with new information but no concrete solution, Jay and her friends decided to stay together, hoping to protect her through numbers. They traveled to a secluded beach, thinking the open space might offer some safety. The peaceful setting provided a brief respite, but it was short-lived. As Jay relaxed on a sun lounger, the entity appeared, this time in the form of a young boy. It grabbed her leg, sending the group into a frenzy. Chaos ensued as they fought off the entity, who was invisible to the others. Greg, a neighbor and friend, joined the struggle and managed to drive the entity away temporarily. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Greg volunteered to take on the curse, believing he could handle it better than Jay. Jay, desperate for a reprieve, agreed. Greg slept with Jay, and for a moment, it seemed the nightmare might be over for her. Greg's skepticism proved to be his undoing. He didn't take the curse seriously, thinking it was all a psychological trick. Within days, the entity found him. It took the form of his mother and cornered him in his house. Jay, feeling an inexplicable connection to the curse, sensed something was wrong and rushed to Greg's house, only to find him dead. The curse had reverted back to her. Grief-stricken and exhausted, Jay felt the weight of the curse more than ever. Her friends, unwavering in their support, decided they needed a definitive plan to destroy the entity. They researched folklore and legends, hoping to find a way to combat the supernatural threat. The group devised a plan to lure the entity into a trap at the local community pool. They gathered electrical appliances, intending to electrocute the entity once it entered the water. Jay volunteered to be the bait, entering the pool while the others prepared the ambush. As night fell, the entity appeared, taking the form of Jay's deceased father. The sight was both heartbreaking and terrifying for Jay. The entity began hurling the electrical devices into the pool, trying to electrocute Jay. In the ensuing chaos, the group fought to protect Jay and execute their plan. They managed to shoot the entity, causing it to fall into the pool. For a moment, it seemed they had succeeded. The entity's body floated in the water, motionless. Jay, cautiously optimistic, climbed out of the pool, her friends rallying around her. But as they left the pool area, the entity's body disappeared, leaving them uncertain of their victory. In the weeks that followed, Jay and her friends tried to return to normal life, but the threat of the entity loomed over them. Jay and Paul, who had grown closer through the ordeal, decided to take on the burden together. They passed the curse between themselves, hoping to stay one step ahead of the entity. They learned to live with the constant vigilance, always watching their surroundings and never staying in one place for too long. Their bond grew stronger, forged in the crucible of shared terror. They knew the entity could never be truly defeated, but they found solace in their companionship and resilience. Ferndale returned to its tranquil facade, but Jay and Paul knew that beneath the surface, the curse still lurked. They continued their lives, forever marked by the ordeal they endured. The entity remained a constant presence, a reminder of the fragility of their peace and the resilience of the human spirit. In the end, the story of Jay Height became a whispered legend in Ferndale, a cautionary tale of unseen horrors and the strength found in friendship and love. Jay and Paul's journey was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to confront and overcome even the most relentless of fears.